Welcome to Success in Motion. Join us as we dive deep with top leaders, entrepreneurs, and professionals, uncovering strategies to grow, scale, and succeed.
Welcome back to Success in Motion podcast. My name is Alex Burhoe, and I am your host. And today we have an awesome guest with us, Ted Dodge. So, Ted, go ahead and catch up the audience. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about your business right now. Where are you at?
Well, I'm heading into my 57th year in financial services. I came up from California in 1964 to go to school at Brigham Young University, and was just about to get out of college, and the Vietnam War was pretty hot and heavy. So, and I couldn't get into a guard unit here in Utah, so I went to Farmington, New Mexico. That's where my wife was from, and so I joined the National Guard. And then when I came home from basic and AIT, I went to the New Mexico Military Academy, spent a year there, and got a commission as a second lieutenant. And so my career at that time took me to New Mexico, Texas, California, came back to Utah, and then back up to Idaho. And I made the decision that because I'd spent 8 years in retail, I made the decision that I really wanted to get into something where I controlled my time and would be compensated based on the results that I achieved and not what somebody else thought I was worth. And it's been real well. So for 56 years, I haven't had to set an alarm clock. I haven't had anybody call me and say, well, why aren't you at work? And it allowed me over the years to have flexibility to. Two of my daughters were very active in dance. One danced professionally in Phoenix. One went to Joffrey Ballet in New York. And so it gave me time to be with them. It gave me time to be my son's soccer coach when he was just getting started in soccer. And now, 50 years later, I think he still is on a soccer league, but he's getting a little older now. And I really feel like I've had a lot of success in my industry. I started with a company that was part of the JCPenney company called Great American Reserve. And I started, when I got out of OCS, I started as a rep in Salt Lake, had a lot of success. They had me go to the home office for a year as a sales supervisor. And then they sent me to Santa Ana, California to build a scratch agency, and had a lot of success there. And so 18 months later, they made me the regional director for the 14 Western states. I was the youngest vice president in the company at that time. And after about 9 years, I could kind of see the handwriting on the wall. JCPenney, the pinstripe executives from Salt Lake from New York City thought that it was as easy to sell insurance as it was towels. So they were moving towards a totally different direction. And so I had an offer from Beneficial Life, a company that was domiciled in Salt Lake City. And it allowed me to get off the road. Had a lot of success with them. I was a new agency manager of the year, the Quota Buster Agency of the Year. And then they came and asked me to go into the home office in Salt Lake because one of their general agents, a gentleman by the name of Ralph Hill, who had the Idaho portion of the company, was going to retire. So I spent 6 months in the home office, and then I went to Idaho. And of the 9 years that I was up there from 81 to 90, we were the number one agency for 7 out of the 9 years. We retired their President's Cup. And then in 90, we were living in Pocatello, Idaho. And my ex-wife wanted to get back to Provo and take care of her mom. So I resigned in 19 90, and they were a great company. Our organization, we had a lot of success. In 9 years, we placed $1 million, $1 billion worth of life insurance.
Difference between million and billion.
Yeah, in fares. And then I kind of became independent for a while. And then about 1998, I joined an organization called World Marketing Alliance. I had a lot of success with them. I got my $100,000 ring from Cassius Clay in the pit of the MGM Grand. And then in 1990, my business partner and I didn't like the makeup of the company. You know, we were doing well financially, but we're bringing people into the industry, and you know, it just didn't fit with us. So the Penn Mutual came to us, and they offered us $1 million to form an agency over a 2-year period. And so we joined the Penn Mutual, and they lived up to every promise that they made, and we lived up to our end of the agreement. And so that was very successful. They had 73 sales offices nationwide, and we were either number one or number two all the 5 years. And then in 2005, I decided to go into retirement, move from Orem, Utah to St. George, Utah, and then had an organization down there. But then in 2013, I went through a divorce after 43 years of marriage, and that was kind of an interesting, tough time. But over 8 years ago, I met a very, very nice lady, and she lived up here in northern Utah at the time, just north of Ogden. We got married, and we've been married now for 8 years, and couldn't be happier. But one of the things that kind of changed my perspective, Alex, was about, I think it was 25 years ago, I read a book called The Right Exit Strategy, WRIGHT. Bruce Wright, a gentleman in Simi Valley, California, wrote the book. And basically he says you create your perfect calendar. In other words, if money is not an option, how are you going to spend your time, your talents, and your resources? And, you know, we used to do seminars on this topic. And if somebody was a golfer, you know, they'd say, well, that's a no-brainer. You know, we're going to play golf in the morning, come home, have some lunch, play golf in the afternoon. If it's daylight savings, you know, we'll get in the third round. And that was the first half of the book. But then in the second half of the book, the thing that really hit me was Bruce Wright said, if you really want to find happiness in this life, you've got to be involved in things that are about more than just money. You've got to be involved in giving back. And so at that time, I started doing humanitarian work. I had 50-yard line seats at the BYU Stadium in Provo, Utah, and I gave those up. I quit playing golf, and so I started doing humanitarian work. I started with an organization called 1,000 Smiles. They do maxillofacial surgery in Ensenada, Mexico. And I worked with them for a couple of years, and it was kind of interesting. People would say, well, you're not a doctor. And I'd say, no, I realize I'm not a doctor, but I can carry their bags. And that was a wonderful experience. And I came back and read an article in our local newspaper in Provo called the Daily Herald. And the title of it was, for these 12 Boy Scouts, it was not a pleasure trip. So it told of them going to Tijuana, Mexico, and doing humanitarian work with a Catholic priest. Now, they were a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, so that was a little unusual. but they would go down and they would provide service there in Tijuana. And so I was very intrigued by this individual. So I drove from Orem, Utah to Twin Falls, Idaho, and I met Gordon Carter. And he had started an organization called Charity Anywhere Foundation. And so I've been working with them ever since that time. We do a lot of work, for example, in Peru. I've been down there 6 times. We do a lot of work in Mexico. We do a lot of work in Guatemala. I've been down there 6 times. And we do a lot of work in Tijuana. And then most recently, we do a lot of work in Rocky Point, Puerto Penasco, which is about 2.5 hours from Phoenix. They call it Phoenix's Beach. And in 2015, we helped develop a community center there. And today, we've got dormitories for the volunteers. We've got a health clinic. We've got a physical therapy clinic. We've got a dental clinic. We've got just a lot going. And this is in the poorest of the poor area of that part of Mexico. And it's kind of interesting. A lot of people that go down there, they have 5-star resorts along the Sea of Cortez. And but you go maybe a mile or 2 inland, and the people are struggling to make it on $15, $20 a day. So it very, very impactful. We are a full loan charity in Ecuador. We work very closely with the Ecuadorian Navy. We send down containers with about $5,000 worth of, $250,000 worth of medical supplies and other things that they need in the villages. And the mayors of the village donate $5,000 to receive that $250,000. And during COVID, they would send the military, the Navy would send planes up to North Salt Lake, Utah, and the National Guard would load those planes with food and other supplies and everything. They'd turn right back around. They'd go back down to Ecuador. So
how were you able to open up all of the doors to let you into all these different humanitarian places? Because you're talking about Mexico, Tijuana, all these different areas. How were you able to open the doors to all these different places?
Well, the need is so great in these areas that it's not hard to find good projects, things that need to be done. I mean, you just drive around the streets and you just see all kinds of need. You take Tijuana, you see somebody living in a shack, and maybe we go in and build a small home. And, when we see people on the street that don't have any place to go, and we try and create locations where maybe they can go and get some food, similar to a homeless shelter.
Yeah.
And in my career early on, I would go on probably 3 trips a year paid for by the companies that I represented, and would stay in 5-star hotels and eat in the best restaurants. And I remember when it happened, we were in Malaga, Spain, along the Gold Coast down there. And I was sitting around the pool reading a book. And I said, there's got to be something more to life than this. And so for me, and today here in Ogden for 4 years, I've worked at an organization called Tri-City Exchange. Every Friday, we have people come in and give us a $5 donation if they have it. If they don't have it, then we still let them go through the line. We generally give them about $150,000, $150 worth of food. And we're seeing more middle income people coming through, and they tell us every Friday that, if you guys weren't around, we could not afford the food that we have the need for it to feed our families. And so that's kind of a little bit about my history. And so it changed my focus because early on, and I had just tremendous financial success in Idaho. And I remember my top earning year was $350,000.
Yeah.
And, we were living the good life. But then I came to realize that for me, success became no longer going after the plaques, the recognition, and the other things associated with success that you can have in business. And it literally did change my life. And my children, my grandchildren, they know that, Grandpa's not going to take them to Disneyland. He's not going to take them to Knott's Berry Farm. But if they want to serve a humanitarian project, whether it's in Guatemala, Peru, Mexico, I'll help them achieve that. And I also realize that many times, we get to a certain point in our life and we realize that the ladder is probably against the wrong wall. And the things that give us happiness and satisfaction are not bigger homes, more stuff, fancy cars. It really is looking for ways that you can give back.
Yeah. So as you've been doing all that change from all that success in your career to now really heavily emphasizing humanitarian work and serving, what have been some of the biggest challenges you've had to overcome throughout your career?
Well, it's probably been prospecting, but about 2 years ago, we found a tool. It's a digital trust. And, and today we teach people a lot how to create generational wealth because first you need to start off with a trust. And we have the digital trust, meaning that they pay a one-time fee. They can go online 24/7, make changes to it. They can embed a video for the family. We put in a IRA beneficiary trust. So that's the first thing that people need to look at, because here in Utah, if you've got $100,000 of equity in your home and you don't have a trust, it's going to go through probate. And that probate can run 7 to 10% of the estate. But then the other area that we're really looking at today is tax mitigation, because people today have as much as $1 million in 401k accounts or IRA accounts. And even though that sounds great, every single dollar that they start paying or taking out of that account as distribution is going to be taxed as ordinary income. And so we try and take and show them ways that they can take dollars that are always going to be taxed and turn them into dollars that are never going to be taxed. And the second thing that we teach people about creating generational wealth is to have some type of business that you can pass on to the next generation and have, them involved at an early age. Your kids, you can shift income. You can have them involved in the businesses, and then eventually, they'll be able to take over that business. And a great example that we use is Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt was a billionaire, but when he passed on, his name is on Vanderbilt University, but that's about all they have, because they just gave that money to their kids, their heirs, in an unrestricted way. And the family members just built bigger second homes and just basically spent all that today. And, and today their legacy, because all of the money that was inherited is gone. And all that they have today is their name on Anderson or Vanderbilt University. So, and, and my attitude, I think, has changed a little over the years because oftentimes, I would work with people and they really didn't want uh, to pass anything on to their kids. They said, they're on their own. But with the world that we live in today, without that opportunity that comes from recaptured dollars that can go to work doing good in the world, they're not going to be able to do some of the things. They may want to go to college. They may want to get go on a mission for their church. They may want to buy a new home. And so the third thing that we talk to people about is the creation of a family bank. And this is what the wealthy in our country do today. They create that family bank that give them the ability to grow that money without having it taxed, take it out without being taxed, and then ultimately passes in a tax-free death benefit to that next generation. So we use different tools, maybe setting up charitable remainder trust, charitable foundation, and a lot of other tools that allow them to recapture those dollars. So, and so for me today, that solved the prospecting problem, because in one mailing of 6,000 people, we fill the room, and we're able to share that message.
That's awesome. So I know another big keyword people have been throwing around. I know you guys are working on creating kind of that generational wealth and really being able to pass down in a really good and structured way, which is incredible and honestly something I think we all should learn more about. Another big word we've been hearing thrown around is that passive income, growing your passive income to either supplement or even potentially replace your active income. Have you guys had any thoughts about this?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, today I've got 6 streams of passive income, and I'm a very firm believer in it, because if one of them shuts down, I've got the other 5. And the other thing that I'm kind of seeing is a change today is many people just because we started using a process 25 years ago called LEAP, Lifetime Economic Acceleration Process. Before that, I'd been doing traditional planning. I'd create a 50-page book and had all the graphs and the projections, and then realized, that none of us know what our situation is going to be on Monday. So why not build a model that's not risk-based around something that is set up in a way where failure is not an option, and just take all the roadblocks away, and at any point in time, just try and create as much wealth as you can. And part of that is we use the velocity of money approach. Get $1 to do multiple things instead of just one. And the average person out there today, I mean, they're just kind of trusting the financial institutions without really realizing, when you do a deep dive into it, you find out that when you take out the fees and the expenses and the fluctuation in the market, it's not nearly as enticing as they make you think. And that's why today I think people need to look at alternatives where they can, here again, not throw a lot of risk into the equation, but they can generate greater income from the assets that they have. Because, you can only go so far with some of the financial products that are out there today. And so that is becoming, more prevalent, more necessary. And the average person, doesn't even realize what's happening in their financial situation. They just know that they're struggling to keep up because of inflation and other factors that enter into it. So it's really been fun. And I'm 78 years old, and people say, "Well, when are you going to retire?" And I'm going to say, "I'm never going to retire. I've been working since I was 10 years old, and for 68 years, there's never been a time when I haven't had a job or something to do in that time period. And I really wouldn't know what to do if I didn't have a reason to get out of bed in the morning. And I think it's important for people to kind of understand and determine, what's my why? What will get me out of bed in the morning? What will motivate me to go out into the world and try and do good? And so for many, many years, I just kind of chased the fancy ornaments and finally came to a point where I just really said, there's got to be more than this.
That's awesome. Well, perfect, Ted. We thank you so much for your time and all those wonderful insights. I think you've shared some really good information, from focusing on serving others and doing some humanitarian to some, hey, make sure you're building generational wealth and everything else. Now, if any of the people listening today would like to connect with you, what would be the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Well, my email is Ted, TED, at boardwalkgroup.net. Ted at boardwalkgroup.net, just like Boardwalk and Park Place. Perfect. And my phone number is area code 801-319-9810.
Perfect. All right. Well, thanks again so much, Ted. We appreciate it. And the listeners appreciate it as well.
Okay. Thanks, Alex. Have a good day.
Thanks for tuning into Success in Motion. Want to share your story? Visit successinmotionpodcast.com/guest to apply and be featured on the show.